Hi, my name is Pat Keon. I'm a senior research analyst with Lipper. I'm here to speak to you about the fund flows activity for the week ended Wednesday, April 3rd. We'll start by taking a quick look at the market activity for the week. All the major equity indices were up for the fund flows trading week. The NASDAQ Composite, the S&P 500, and the Dow Jones Industrial Average recorded gains of 3.3%, 2.4%, and 2.3% respectively. The markets took strength from a couple different sources. One was the optimism over the progress of the trade talks between U.S. and China, as well as some better than expected manufacturing data as both of those countries as well. The stronger manufacturing data gave a little bit eased concerns over the global growth worries that have been going on lately. And both the U.S. and China also put out bullish indicators in regards to the trade talks. U.S. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin tweeted out that they were having constructive negotiations, while China, in a good faith effort, said they would suspend all future tariffs on U.S. autos in an effort to help the trade talks move along. Let's turn our attention back now to the fund flows activity for the week. We'll start by taking a look at our macro groups. Equity mutual funds saw net outflows of $8.4 billion. Taxable bond funds had net inflows of $922 million. Muni debt funds, net inflows of $787 million, and money market funds took in $1.4 billion in net new money. We'll take a closer look at each one of these groups now, starting off with the equity mutual fund group. As I just mentioned, they had net outflows of $8.4 billion last week. This was their seventh straight net outflow, during which time they've seen $33 billion leave their coffers. This is a reverse from what we've seen at the start of the year. The group started off the year strong with 6 straight weekly net inflows, but as we can see now, times have changed for them. In this week's activity, domestic equity mutual funds were responsible for $6.7 billion of the net outflows, while non-domestic contributed $1.7 billion to the net negative flows. We'll move on now. The next group to take a look at is equity ETFs. This group had net inflows last week. They took in about $4.5 billion in net new money. The major contributors to the net inflows were the SPDR S&P 500, had net inflows just shy of $3 billion. The iShares Core S&P 500 ETF had net inflows right around $1.4 billion, while conversely the Invesco QQQ product saw just about $1 billion leave their coffers. Our next group to take a look at is the taxable bond group. We'll start with mutual funds. This group had net inflows of $922 million last week, which was their 12th straight weekly net inflow. The main contributors last week were core plus bond funds and core bond funds, which had net positive flows of roughly $1.1 billion and $1 billion respectively. Our next group to look at is taxable bond ETFs. We saw net outflows here last week. Net inflows last week. They took in $2.8 billion in net new money. This was led by the iShares iBox Dollar High Yield Corporate product, which had net inflows just over $910 million. And then the SPDR Bloomberg Barclays High Yield product had net inflows right around $460 million. On the sell side, the iShares Floating Rate ETF product saw net outflows of about $255 million. Next group to take a look at is muni bond funds. This group is also on a net inflow streak. They took in $787 million last week. It was their 13th straight weekly net inflow, driven as usual by the national muni peer groups. This week we see the largest net inflows for intermediate muni debt funds and high yield muni debt funds at about $300 million and $260 million respectively. Our last asset group to take a look at is money market funds. Net inflows here last week, about $1.4 billion in total. The largest net inflows amongst the peer groups belong to money market instrument funds and U.S. government money market funds, which took in $3.8 billion and $3.4 billion in net new money respectively. Well, that wraps up this week's report. If you'd like to take a closer look at the data for yourself, please go to our website. It's www.lipperusfundflows.com. And please join us here again next week where another one of our analysts will be speaking about the week's fund flows activity.